Elon has a 500,000 unit sales goal for 2020, and it looks like it's going to happen. And so we wanted to kind of review this because there was just an upgrade of a 571 price target for the stock, partially driven by his comments. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. First time, welcome. Repeat visitor, welcome back. We want to specifically thank our Patreon supporters. Your presence makes a huge difference. And I wanted to note that for the higher end Patreon supporters, we actually do a show every day of the week, particularly focused on investment and trading ideas to better manage your portfolio and investments, especially when it comes to Tesla. So we haven't been on in several days, and part of my reticence has been the fact that we always want to do a good job and we always want to provide great information. One of the problems we often have is that if we make comments that aren't Tesla positive at every moment, there's a lot of mail that suggests that we don't like the company, et cetera, et cetera. I just wanted to note that I just finished watching the 60 Minutes piece this week regarding the impact of climate change in the fires in the West, as well as the hurricanes that are going on the East Coast. And this specifically is one of the main reasons why I'm interested in Tesla and how it rolls out. Because if we have viable technology like Tesla bringing transportation, it makes a huge difference for all of our lives. And that's why I'm a Tesla fan. So if you hear us talk about what's going on with the company, the stock, et cetera, be aware that the fascination is how can we participate in something that helps make our planet better? And I think Tesla's ability to commercialize electric vehicles is a great illustration of that. So I just want to thank you for your interest in watching this show, and note that we are indeed Tesla fans, and specifically because the mission statement really moves the needle on what we need to do in terms of climate change. So I wanted to get into today the fact that Tesla stock price is up nicely. There's a concept we came up with called the 3-day rule. So the number of vehicles produced came out last Friday morning. And so what we found is that 3 days after, or 3 business days after a major announcement like that, gives analysts an opportunity to both research what happened, write a report, and then present those reports to the large holders. As we've covered numerous times, 60% of the shares of the stock is usually held by large institutions. And so what they choose to do, buy, sell, hold, really influences the stock price and its direction in the short and long term. So what we are kind of getting now, which is Thursday, and it's somewhat followed through on Wednesday, is the fact that we're basically in a kind of a 3-day after the 3-day rule period, where analysts have written the report, presented it to their large clients, and we're now seeing the byproduct of those institutions making their decisions to either buy, sell, or hold the stock. And yes, the market is up because of hope regarding a stimulus, but in general, I'd have to say that clearly it looks like it's a positive reception. So the kind of icing on the cake was the fact that Elon actually sent a memo out indicating that 500,000 was a realistic goal in terms of production for the year. So I just thought this was good news, and it seemed to push the stock further because it sort of validated the support of the analysts in terms of price goals that they might have had for Tesla, particularly in a positive direction. So I have to say that everything that I'm seeing says things are going well for Tesla. The key to it, though, is that I've been having this interesting debate argument with some of my show supporters that are good friends that I trade with, etc. And one of the discussions we've been going back and forth on is wow, Elon is saying we can do 500,000 vehicles this year. And what's interesting is that based on the productive capacity of the Shanghai facility, I think that the actual production numbers are a no-brainer. Tesla can produce the 500,000. Where the challenge seems to be is at the current price point that Tesla is delivering, particularly in China, are we able to get the number of buyers at the price tier that we're at currently that hasn't dropped down yet because of shifting production to China? And the answer to that is that I think that it's, I guess, probably likely, but I think we're kind of in that, I think we can do it, but I'm not sure. And the reason I say that is there's some data that flowed out of China that I thought was really powerful in defining where we are right now. So what you'll notice from our show is that we've kind of become a China-centric company in terms of, we feel like Tesla's becoming more and more China-centric because wherever the largest amount of your sales are and your largest growth is, tends to be the concentration of where the most opportunity is for the company. So we just went through sort of a tiered process with China. The first process, let's say in April, May, was that Tesla had as much as a 1 to 2 month backlog of orders for the China-produced Model 3. By June, we were informed that Tesla, with increasing production in Shanghai, had blown through most of that backlog, and Tesla had gone from a $2,500 per vehicle reservation fee to a, let's say in April, May, it had moved to about a $250 reservation fee for, let's say, June, July, and the vehicles were being delivered within 3 weeks of order versus having a couple of 8 weeks or so delay before you could get your car. So we kind of walked from 2 month backlog, 2,500 down, kind of no backlog, 250 down, and then we entered an interesting period, July, August, where it was announced that Tesla would now start shipping vehicles to China or from China to other parts of the world. I'm thinking especially into Europe. And so what this suggested then is that we've now gone from a backlog to having so many cars produced in the Shanghai facility that we now needed to get them out of country in order to keep the production lines going and how sales were going, sort of fitting that. So what blends into this discussion is that Elon has talked about that there's unlimited demand for cars, and I completely agree. What he's also been talking about a lot is that the exploitation of that unlimited demand is extremely contingent upon how many dollars it is for the vehicles. So in essence, the closer we get to 30K, 25K, those neighborhoods, those marketplaces open up for a huge amount of sales increase. So the battery work relative to the new battery makes sense with that goal in mind. And then efforts to reduce costs further, for example, the whole China percentage of production being produced there and the fact that that lowers costs further is another illustration of this effort. And so globally, what our sense is, one, I think the company's doing well. Two, our expectation is that now that we're seeing what the analysts are saying with this $570 price target for the stock, I think it suggests that the near term, the next 3-4 weeks for Tesla is going to be really great, especially heading into earnings October the 28th. And so I would think now that we have one analyst with the upgrade, we'll probably get 2 or 3 more. And I think that means a nice 20, 30, 40 point increase in Tesla's stock price reflective of this new news. So I wanted to bring all this up because, there's not a negative intent whatsoever on Tesla. I want you to be aware that we're definitely Tesla positive and that the impact it's had is huge on a lot of fronts. Obviously, the solar transitioning these utilities out of coal-fired plants as backups into solar, obviously the large number of electric vehicles now on the road, reducing fossil fuel consumption, et cetera. There's just an awesome company in terms of its powerful impact on things. So we're pleased to finally have some good news we can report and not have bad news that might, you know, cause people to not be happy with what we're presenting. And I think that's awesome. We have several shows planned in succession, and we look forward to following through on some interesting things we've been researching. The next thing I wanted to review is we usually do our health tips. And I had a couple of health tips that were kind of different than our usual process. The first of them is I have a good friend of mine from high school. Her name is her first name is Susan. And Susan and I had a conversation about a year ago as she was finishing up an MPH in the, I think, Tufts University's program. And she said something really amazing to me about dieting. What she said was, you know, Greg, my dad was a doctor, and I had weight challenges my entire life. And I went to many different doctors to try to get it figured out. And what she said to me was that she went to a doctor, and the doctor said to her, look, I want you to try a unique diet. What the diet is that I'd like to ask you to, for a 1 or 2 month period, look at the boxes that you're buying with your food or not. If it's regular food, that's fine. But the number one consideration is to make sure that you know whatever it is that's on the outside of that box, and you know what it is, and therefore your body can likely digest it. If there's a box with ingredients you can't pronounce or do not understand, you're not allowed to eat it. So I wanted to mention this diet to you because I thought it was a really interesting diet, which is basically if you can't recognize it, probably your body can't recognize what it is either, and therefore you probably shouldn't eat it. So a random note on this for me would be stuff like high fructose corn syrup. It's a cheaper ingredient to put into a soda than using regular sugar, but it turns out that according to our kidney doc in Rockville, what he was pointing out is we've come up with some really cool substances over the last 50 or 100 years. The challenge is our body can't digest them, so instead of doing so, it kind of stores them near major organs, and that's where you get type 2 diabetes and other issues showing up. So basically, our health tip today is to consider the weird diet, which is if you can't figure out what it is for a month, you can't eat it. And see, do you feel better? Do you have, better rest? I'd be intrigued to find out what you guys think if you experiment with this diet. Now, we usually have our usual list of 25 leg lifts per leg with a 5-pound weight per leg. Also wanted to encourage you to consider a once a week, no more than once a week for fried foods. Also wanted to encourage you to consider don't go to bed within 4 hours of eating, 2 preferably. And that recommendation was made by a professor at the University of Louisville's medical school, because he specializes in upper respiratory cancer. And he highlighted to us that there's this problem with people being very busy right now, and so they end up eating late and then jumping into bed quickly. And all the stomach acids that digest that food will start digesting you. And we'd like you to stay healthy. And so for those of you who listen to our health tips and don't like them, that's fine, but we always articulate that we're leaving our Tesla discussion and getting into health tips. That way you don't have to listen to them, because our goal is not only for people to be able to go in their Teslas and enjoy, our goal is to be healthy here as well and pass on tips to you that we think would be helpful in your health processes. So you don't have to send me flaming emails about health tips. All of our tips come from top quality doctors from around the world, and we usually attribute everything that we present to the doctors who presented it. So If you do really want us to dig through, give you some names of who our docs are, no problema, because these are not my suggestions. I was also proud of the fact that we have a top 10 list, and I walked through most of what we present. And I actually had the former head of Georgetown Hospital give me an exam, which was he made me go through our top 10 health tips and said, yeah, every one of those is excellent and well placed. So we've not only researched them from the people who are experts in the field, but we've also researched them in secondarily with other docs from different persuasions, and they all come up with the same thing. Further, I do want to ask you guys to put notes at the bottom of in the comments if you have ideas that we should consider as well, because one of the ways the show does better is if there's information being shared that we can all benefit from. And I think health tip ideas that you might have, et cetera, is definitely something I'd like to enhance the show with for everybody involved. So finishing up today, congrats on the up for Tesla stock. Congrats on hopefully the stimulus helping to facilitate a better outcome in this regard. Also want to thank you for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss French, tschüss German, au revoir French, lehitro Hebrew, Khoda Hafez Farsi, Namaste Hindu, Zdravstvuyte, hello in Russian, Ni hao ma, hello in Chinese, Dobrodzenia, Russian, Hey Do's, Swedish, and in Jamaica we say, Enough respect, walk good man, and Assalamu alaikum, Muslim. Have a great day. Thanks once again for joining us. We look forward to your comments, and let's make some money on your Tesla stock.